love the sinner, hate the sin, don't you? But it's a hard one, that, because actually if you do something often enough, that is part of you, that's part of your character, isn't it? If you spend every day of your life going out as a nurse, helping people, clothing them, washing them, diagnosing them, supporting them, going out, to the toilet, talking about their problems, reporting their symptoms, trying to find medicines that will help them. If that's what you're doing day to day, that is you. That's part of your, well, that's not just alone, but that's a part of you, isn't it? So, and so the things you do are part of what makes you who you are. Then, if you, but of course, if you only do a one thing or a limited number of things, that's not the only thing that makes you. A man is many things, of course. You're not just that thing. I stole, did some shoplifting when I was 15. I'm not just a shoplifter though. I stopped that years ago, but and many other things besides that, hopefully. I'm not just, people are complex. We've got so many different identities and different labels over so long a period. But what you do is part of who you are. But if you do it a little bit, and the less you do of it, that's less to do with who you are, isn't it? Stands to reason, isn't it? But you can't completely divorce your actions from who you are as a person. So that's where that idea of, loving the sinner but hating the sin sort of breaks down in a way to me, because that's sort of like the idea of separating the two. So it leads me to think, but you are what you do in some respects. You do many different things, of course. So you are many different things, and you may do some things a little bit. You may do a little bit of bad, a lot of bad, and a lot of good. So people are very complicated, and they resist really being put into simple, oversimplified definitions that don't do justice to the vast complexity of an individual. And we all have that kind of complexity. I think we owe it to ourselves and others to strive to sort of try and be more honest and to paint a more complex and honest picture of each other, and not reduce people to slogans and cliches. And you can't describe someone in a word or sentence. Even a paragraph isn't befitting. People have life stories that make up chapters, and it takes a long time to sort of get to know someone and get to find out the complexity of what they're really about. You can't find out someone from reading a headline or, so-and-so did this, or just a label. It really isn't befitting to any one of us. And, to do proper justice to any of us, really, you have to take the time, the energy to study, to listen to someone's life story, or to the best and worst parts, the concise version at least, which at least takes some hours at least, I would think. And perhaps probably I would guess much longer than that. And I think it's not just in terms of an investment in terms of time, but emotional as well, because, that requires you hearing about the stories of them being a victim, the sufferings they've been through, the hardships, and the triumphs, the times that they've overcome, where they've succeeded and where they've bettered themselves too, and the times where they've harmed others or harmed themselves even. And so it requires an emotional investment, listening through those things and, taking those things on board. And so, they're my general findings and summary that I wanted to sort of do a video of, just so I can look back at a future date and sort of and see how I look back at it. I suppose I just thought it's nice to sort of make a record of something, to sort of share thoughts, and I think it's really important to sort of like try and discuss issues as much as possible, because I really feel that philosophy isn't something for the classroom. It's not something that should be elitist or for a small group of people. It's something that's practical and part of everyday life, and that it's relatable, and that actually is something that affects us all in terms of how we relate to each other, in terms of our relationships, in our families, at work, in our social groups, in our religious groups, in our political groups, at school, in how we relate to each other economically, socially, in all these different ways, and how society is made up, and in all the multitude of different relationships that make it up. I think it's important, it affects all of us in a practical sense. It's not something that you talk about only in an academic thing and in long wording jargon books that don't have any real meaning to the person on the street. It's something I believe actually has a practical application, and is something that is important in our lives day to day, week to week, and it's something that actually is important, that we take the time to reflect on our own lives and each other, and the relationships and the quality of those that we have within our lives, because I think that's really important. And I think that we need to self-examine ourselves, and allow ourselves as well, to be fairly examined by others. It's got to be a two-way street, a mutual kind of examination, hasn't it? In terms of asking each other questions, probing, and trying to find out and learn as much from each other, because what is a relationship but getting to know and learn and to care about one another? That is, for me, is essence, isn't it? And I think that's pretty much all I wanted to say on that. I think I've perhaps overtalked that issue a little bit, but yeah, I think that's pretty much the limit of where I wanted to say.